Hello my darlings and welcome. In this video, I design and create a greeting card for Beltane using watercolor paint and fineliner pens. Let's do some magical crafting. Beltane falls between the spring equinox and summer solstice when the natural world is blooming. It's typically associated with creativity, prosperity, hope, fertility, and the return of life after winter. Beltane is often represented by the flowers that bloom as summer approaches. And so I'm going to paint a field of wildflowers for my card. I'll leave links below to all of the materials I use in this project. And if you enjoy my art-rich content, kindly leave a like on this video. If you'd like to see how I set up my watercolor palette, I have a separate video on that process, and I'll leave a link to it below. I tried several designs for my card, and I ended up with a design that pairs doodling leaves and flowers on top of loose watercolor splotches. I started by mixing up reds, yellows, and oranges to represent the wildflowers, with some green for grass and pale aqua blue for the sky. Red, yellow, and orange are the colors of poppies which bloom in the spring in Southern California where I live. If you do this magical craft, you may wish to paint different flowers that align more closely with what's blooming in your area. My process to create the card is to use an entire sheet of watercolor paper and begin with some grass at the bottom and a light wash of teal for the sky. I'm using a heat tool to dry the paint in between layers to avoid bleeding. However, if you like, you can work wet on wet if you prefer that look. Once the background was dry, the next step was to paint the colorful backgrounds of each bloom onto the paper. In this case, I did do a bit of wet on wet technique to bloom some orange paint into the yellow and red petals. After drying the flowers, I went back in with green paint to add stems, leaves, and fill in the grass a bit more. The next step was to add my flower doodles on top of the watercolor. I'm using a .01 waterproof micron pen, and I'm loosely sketching petals and stems. With that done, I moved on to sketching some small flowers and leaves in the grass. And finally, I added a few little details with a white gel pen. Once I was happy with the artwork, the next step was to scan the artwork and clean it up and color correct it in Photoshop. I also added a light gray border and set the card up to be printed out in the center of a letter-sized piece of cardstock. I created two versions of the card. One version says Happy Beltane, and I left one version blank for writing in any sentiment. I'll be making a downloadable and printable version of these cards available on Patreon. If you'd like to download a PDF of these cards, please visit Magical Crafting on Patreon at the link below the video. My patrons can download recipes, Book of Shadows pages, artwork, and more, all provided as PDFs. And I continue to add new, downloadable content as I do more projects on the channel. The next step was to trim out my cards and fold them. I carefully line up the corners and edges and use a bone folder to get a very sharp crease. A fun final step is to trim out the corners into a curve. If you have a steady hand, you can do this with a pair of scissors, or you can use a corner cutter tool, or just leave the corners square if you prefer. I hope this video has inspired you to create your own Beltane greeting cards. I would love to become pen pals with my witchy viewers, and if you'd like to share holiday cards, I'll leave my address below.